Hello, hola, bonjour, assalamu alaikum, здравствуйте, guten tag, welcome to the Knitters Party podcast. This is a podcast about knitting mostly, a little bit about travel, and a lot about beer. So come in, join me, hope you brought your knitting, and feel free to pour yourself a drink, because it is a party after all, so you can't have parties without, some libation. So get whatever it is that strikes your fancy and come join me. My name is Megan. I'm the host of the Knitters Party podcast, and I'm coming to you today from Clarkston, Michigan. This is my family's home, and we've got just some new interesting things on the show today. I hope you guys are going to like it, so strap in and come join me. First of all, I want to just, again, welcome everyone to the podcast. You can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Meg311Yo. That's my handle, and please do feel free to add me on Ravelry, send me a friend request, whatever it is, and I'll be sure to add you back. And hopefully, if you want to add me on Ravelry as well, I'm hoping to be a little more active. This has been kind of a interesting week for me, and so I've been a little slow on social media lately, but that doesn't mean that I'm not checking and that I don't definitely appreciate everyone who has commented in our Ravelry group, everyone who has also taken advantage of that amigurumi download coupon code that I gave you guys a couple episodes back. If you have not yet picked up your free pattern for one of my amigurumi patterns, please feel free. I'm so excited to see what you guys are downloading. And right now there's kind of like a little competition in terms of free downloads for the most popular pattern. So it's kind of tied right now between the elephant and the owl, and actually the elephant is winning a little bit. So thank you to everyone who has downloaded a pattern, and to the few people who have reached out to me, both letting me know that they are, thankful for the pattern, and also giving me reviews and kind of finding little tiny errors. Sorry about that, guys. I'm definitely not, I don't claim to be a grade A, pattern designer. This is just something that I did a couple years back and wanted to write it down. But there may be errors, so please reach out to me. I will be very happy to rework the patterns, send out an update to you guys, and anyone who has the penguin pattern, you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, thanks for keeping your eyes peeled and for downloading my patterns. Anyway, let's just jump right into the show. We've got some good stuff for you today, but the first thing I always like to start off with is a beer. So today we are drinking Stone out of San Diego, Escondido, California, but San Diego County. Stone's Coffee Milk Stout. Now this came in a mixed 12 pack, but I've never tried this one before, so I'm really interested to see it. Having lived out in Southern California, my husband and I visited the Stone Brewery all the time. It is incredible, you guys. If anyone out there in Southern California hasn't been, up in Escondido, they've got a really lovely beer garden, and it is a tranquil, serene beer garden. They've got bamboo lining everything, so you aren't looking out at the parking lot. They've got really beautiful landscaping, architecture kind of going on. They've got a babbling brook with lots of gorgeous koi fish and other fish kind of swimming around. They've got an amazing kitchen. I can't say enough. That said, I don't always like Stone beers. Stone is known for making huge, big hoppy IPAs, big beers. If you've heard of Arrogant Bastard Ale, that was their flagship a little while ago. Fun fact, since then, Arrogant Bastard has actually turned into their own brewery. I think it's still owned by Stone, but Arrogant Bastard does make their own beers now. So if you pick up a bottle of Arrogant Bastard, you'll see that it no longer has the stone on it. It might still have the gargoyle, I believe. But anyway, it won't have Stone anywhere on it because Arrogant Bastard is now its own brewery. So anyway, this is a beer out of Southern California. I'm really excited to try it. And so let's just open it up, shall we? And while I'm pouring this out, I want to tell you guys about the bottle opener that I'm using for all of these, things. Oh, sorry about my nails. I'm sorry. I painted them like a week and a half ago and they've been chipping and I've been just picking it off. So I do apologize. I really overlooked that before I started filming today, huh? Anyway, this is my lovely bottle opener from the Ballast Point Brewery, also out of San Diego. And they are my favorite brewery in the whole world. Anyway, I don't have a fancy cup. So today we're getting red solo. Good stuff. Color is super dark, rich, beautiful brown, almost black even. But given that it's a milk stout, I would expect it to be as dark as it comes. In terms of a milk stout, I'm not sure what makes a milk stout a milk stout. I really hope they don't add dairy to it. That just seems like it would mess with the fermentation process with beer. But who knows? Anyway, let's give it a try, shall we? Ooh, that's nice. That's really nice. It's it's ice cold, which always helps. And B, the coffee is a really nice dark roasted coffee, and personally I prefer dark roast coffee because I don't like my coffee to be super bitter, and I find that the lighter the roast, the more acidic it is. And so this is definitely brewed with a dark roast coffee. And man, that's just a well-balanced stout. I'm shocked because Stone is always going overboard with their hops, with their flavors. And so I kind of expected this to be gross, but I'm actually really happy, you guys. This is a good beer. So welcome to my party. If you are new, again, like pick up a drink. This is what I do. And I'm really happy to be doing it. So thank you out there for everyone who's watching and everyone who participates. So I sit here with my handmade coaster. I might as well tell you guys about this. This is a coaster. I made about 10 of them actually when I was living in Egypt. So just kind of a refresher, my husband is a PhD candidate from UC San Diego, University of California, San Diego, and he studies Middle Eastern sports history. So he's a super cool dude. He knows tons about history of the Middle East, history of the region, history of sports, kind of how all this started. And we ended up getting a great opportunity to go to Egypt for 4 months so that he could do PhD research. And now a bit more about me. I studied Arabic language in college. I love languages. I think they're awesome. I fell in love with Arabic, and I thought kind of maybe I wanted to work in linguistics, maybe I wanted to work in intelligence, maybe I would go down the education route. I'm still kind of figuring out my way, but the one thing that does not waver is my true love for the Arabic language and for second languages in general, or foreign languages. I studied French in high school and middle school, studied French for 7 years, loved it. So when I started learning Arabic, it was really just second nature to pick up another language. Anyway, that's a little off on a tangent, but when I was in Egypt, I was taking more Arabic language classes. I'm now at the superior level, so I don't know, maybe I can brag a little bit. But anyway, when I was in Egypt, I had a lot of downtime, so I just knit everything. And at the end, I ended up making a full set of these coasters. And these coasters are called the Citrus Coaster by Donna Knits. So the Citrus Coaster, it is crocheted, not knit. I'm sure you guys will see. And this is crocheted out of that yarn that I just felt I had never-ending supply of. This is the Araucania Solids, which is a 100% sugarcane tencel yarn. I really wish I had kept one of the labels, but I didn't know I was going to need it in the future, and so I just chucked them. But I made several things out of this yarn, and I made a whole set of coasters. It's a great yarn, and I figured that because it's sugarcane, it might act more like cotton and kind of be more absorbent than like a wool yarn. I would never make a coaster out of a wool yarn, I don't think. Maybe I would, whatever. I like to, go off the beaten path a little bit. So anyway, that's the coaster that I am putting my beer on. So thanks for sticking with me on that tangent, guys. Let's jump into what am I wearing right now. Happen to notice anything nice? Anything hand knit? I know I've been on a kick wearing sweaters lately. And actually last week I had a scarf or a shawl. But this week I'm going to show you a hat. I also knit this one in Egypt as well. My episode 1, I realize now my Egypt knits one where I kind of show off everything that I knit, horribly incomplete because I didn't show the coasters, I didn't show this hat. I think everything else is included, but I've been kind of wanting to sneak this in because this is actually something that I'm really excited about. And this is a gorgeous hat pattern. So I'm just going to jump right in. This is the Mont Royal hat, Mont-Royal hat. And the designer is T. Shep, T-S-H-E-P. I hope I'm doing that right on Ravelry. And this is a truly gorgeous hat. You can see it's got, and by the way, I believe this is a free pattern. I'm not going to give anything away in case it's not a free pattern, but you should definitely look it up. It was so much fun to knit. And it's got these 3 panels of, it actually is a cable. It's a 1 stitch cable instead of, 4/4 or 2/2. This is a 1/1, or even then a 1 over nothing cable, just to kind of create these winding diamonds. And I just thought that looked fantastic. So yeah, this is it. This is, like I said, the Montreal hat by T. Shep. I had a blast knitting this. And fun fact about this yarn, first and foremost, is Zen Yarn Garden Serenity 20, which is an MCN merino cashmere nylon, and it is 20% cashmere and 10% nylon. So 70% merino and 20% cashmere. This feels like a cloud when I wear it, and it's also really warm. Here in the Midwest, it's been rainy and warm and just kind of foggy a lot lately, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it started snowing the other day. So I brought out my hat, and I am really happy to be wearing this around because it is snuggly and warm, and this yarn, oh my god, it's so soft. It's a dream to knit with, you guys. And I got this yarn also for my birthday. This was one that my amazing mother-in-law purchased for me at Yarning for You, which is in San Marcos, California, by the way. I think I put in my first podcast San Clemente. That is incorrect. Yarning for You is in San Marcos, and they are a really wonderful yarn shop up in Southern California, up in Escondido, like right next. We actually, okay, full circle, you guys. We went to, this was for my birthday, and for my birthday we went yarn shopping, and then we went to the Stone Brewery up there in Escondido, because Escondido and San Marcos are just neighbors to each other. You guys, it's like my almost birthday right now. I'm so excited. You have no idea actually how this makes me feel that I'm wearing a birthday hat, drinking from a birthday brewery. That's a thing, right? Whatever. But yeah, so anyway, my birthday is coming up. February 16th is my birthday, in case any of you guys are wondering. I am an Aquarius, and I had a few people ask me, in fact. So my birthday is coming up, and now I feel even better about wearing this amazing birthday yarn hat and drinking beer from the Stone Brewery, which I visited last year for my birthday. You guys, like, I mean it. I just, All right, back to the hat. So I had this in Egypt, and what I did when I went to Egypt is that I brought with me a bunch of yarn, enough yarn that I thought would get me through a year in Egypt, because initially we had planned to, anyway, I'm going to put this back on really quick, but initially we had planned to be in Egypt for over a year, for about a year. We were going to do 6 months in Cairo, about 3 to 4 months in Alexandria, and then 3 to 4 months traveling around the rest of the country and going to all these little sports clubs so that Paul could do a little bit more of his research. What ended up happening is that we decided to go to Alexandria first. All right, I'm trying to make this look good. We decided to go to Alexandria first because I had lived there back in 2009, just as part of my own language study. I'd lived in Egypt before, and I knew people. I felt like that was the right opportunity for us to kind of get our feet wet. Living in Egypt together. This was Paul's first time truly living there. We'd also visited in 2014 as part of our very belated honeymoon. We got married in 2011, but we didn't take our honeymoon until 2014 just because of finances, and we were moving around. We lived in Boston, then we moved to Santa Barbara, and then we moved to San Diego, and all of these moves kind of took a hit for our bank account sort of thing, and so we weren't able to take that honeymoon until later. It ended up being amazing. We did 1 week in Kenya, and we did like a safari game driving. So you go to view all these incredible animals. It changed my life, really, kind of seeing this other way of life and seeing these animals. Oh my God, Kenya was incredible. If anyone is thinking about traveling there or has the means to travel there, please do, because Kenya was fantastic. So anyway, we did 1 week in Kenya and we did 1 week in Egypt. So that wasn't really exactly living there. So flash forward, 2016, we go back to Egypt, and I asked him, would it be okay if we start in Alexandria? I've got this program with the University of Alexandria that looks really great. I know people. It seemed like a great option. And so, we both decided that that was a good choice. And while we were in Egypt, actually the first month that we were there, Paul gets word that he received the Fulbright Hayes scholarship that will send him to London to continue his PhD research. And the reason we're going to London is that for a period, I want to say less than 100 years, Egypt was controlled by British occupation. And so the UK had a significant impact on modern Egyptian culture and specifically also on their sports. And so Paul is going to London to see their archives, their libraries, sort of the research opportunities that are in the UK about Egypt. And so we're geeked out. Where was I going with this? When I went to Egypt, I brought all this yarn and I ended up forgetting a couple of my needles. And I was so mad at myself because this hat calls for a size US 3 needle. I want to say that's a 3 millimeter, I believe. So US 3 and I believe 3 millimeter. Don't quote me on that. Anyway, I go to my, Knit Picks interchangeable set and it starts at a US 4. So I was a little upset. I didn't have the right size needle, but I said, you know what? I'm generally a fairly tight knitter. I'll just cast on with the size 4s. I've got the yarn for it. Let me do it. And it's a little big. I'm not gonna lie. It is a little, I like the fact that it's slouchy. The way that it fits me, I like it. But I'm worried that with a lot of wear that the brim, again, what is this called? Like where the stretchy part down here, I'm worried that that's going to lose some of its stability and maybe stretch out too much. That's okay. I'm never going to wash this hat, you guys. I wash my hair all the time, so I don't feel weird about that at all. But especially with this merino cashmere nylon, and especially considering the hat is a little big, I feel like if I were to soak this, it would just expand and just blow up into a hat that would never fit me. So I'm not going to wash it. I've never blocked this. This is just going to stay the way it is because I love it and it's warm and it's gorgeous and that's all. So anyway, this is what I'm wearing, which actually, it kind of segues into my what's on my needles, works in progress section. And so I'm going to skip finished objects for now, but I do have one. And I'm going to go straight to my what's on my needles, my works in progress, because it's been cold. I realize I don't have any like mittens, and I want a mitten and a pair of mittens and a scarf that are going to go well with this hat. So last week I showed you guys a couple of those yarns that I purchased at River City Yarns up in Edmonton when we were there for vacation, and I did find an incredible pattern. Geez, this yarn is all over the place. And I cast on. So I am making a set of mittens. And this is like a beautiful mint pistachio sort of green. Let me see if I can fix the lighting here. That's a little better. You can see the color. This is Malabrigo Rios in their water green colorway. And this pattern is the Changing Cable Mittens by Madeline Nancy. It's an incredible pattern. I have a couple, not real issues, just, well, let's just flesh it out a little bit. Let's talk about this and see how it is. First and foremost, these are size US 3 needles. These are my Chowgu Red Twist, which is a new set of interchangeables that I bought for myself because I found an Amazon gift card that we had just never used, and I just bought it for myself. And so I actually, I can't make a proper review yet. I've only used about 2 different sizes. Also mixed reviews on the 2 different sizes I'm using, but the cable itself is great. It's like quite stiff, so it doesn't keep its shape basically. And so if you kind of curl it up in your bag and whatever, it'll undo it and it won't kind of keep that cord shape. And so when you pack it away and you're coiling it up to just put it away, it doesn't keep that. And so I actually do like the red lace twist cables a lot. Total tangent. Again, sorry guys, it must be this coffee beer. It's just hitting me with all this caffeine, right? So these are size US 3, and this is a worsted weight yarn. The mittens are too small for me. And I'm kind of sad about it. Let me put it on here, what I've got done, because it's an incredible pattern. This cabling is fantastic. It's a extremely well-written pattern. I feel like the designer really took their time making it. And so Madeline, Nancy, great job. I love the pattern. It just doesn't fit me. And so I restarted these twice, and I noticed that the yarn was not going to withstand a third frogging. So I decided against sort of frogging the whole thing and redoing it, but the mittens are extremely tight right now. I'm hoping that once it blocks out that it'll sort of expand and poof up a little bit, because even then, there you can see I've got basically this is actually 2 repeats of the cabling section. There's only one more, and then you're supposed to taper off for the fingers. And so if each one is this, boom, 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 there's not going to be enough room for my fingers because there's only about 4 rows of decreases before you're just binding off. And so I feel like I'm going to have to extend them by almost a full cable pattern. I don't know what to do, you guys. So maybe better yet, I'll open it up to you guys. Do you think, or in your experience working with this Malabrigo Rios, does it poof up enough that I would be able to finish the pattern properly with just a third cable pattern before binding off? Will it fit after I block it? Or should I just make these and give them to perhaps my sister who has slightly smaller hands and who loves this color? I'm just so sad, you guys, because this is like my favorite color yarn right now. I've got a million things that match this color, and I was really looking forward to these mittens. Also, by the way, that's clearly the back of the mitten. Let me put it on the correct hand so I can actually show you guys, because this pattern is incredible. I have nothing bad to say about it. It is quite labor intensive, and by that I mean there's a cable chart, and of course written directions as well, but I go by the chart. And you are following line for line for line, because every other line has cables, and there are 3 different cables that you're keeping up with, sort of thing. So anyway, this is sort of the outside pattern, but you can see it's going to be incredibly short. Oh, I'm going to cover up my nails, I'm sorry. But the inside is a really beautiful, super unique sort of stitch pattern. Again, I'm not going to give anything away because this pattern was a paid pattern and it is so worth it. I'm having a really good time knitting these, but it's definitely not TV knitting. I'm following along with a highlighter, literally row for row for row with a highlighter. But the reason I chose this yarn is because I think it looks really good with this blue hat. It is a variegated blue. I mean, you can see it. There's got some, some nice dark purples in there, some other blues, but I just loved this. These mittens make me so happy. I'm just worried that they're not going to fit me. So I'm just grappling with this. I mean, unfortunately, it's made me lose interest in knitting them, unfortunately. I cast these on probably right after I podcasted last, so about a week ago, and I put them down for the last about 4 days. I just haven't worked on them because it's breaking my heart to do so, because I don't want to give them away. I want to wear them, but they're not going to fit. So I'll have to figure it out. This is how much of the ball I've used so far. I think I'll have enough to make it a bit longer, but this cable pattern is so complex that I wouldn't know how to properly sort of follow the pattern and make it longer and decrease with it all looking good. So I'll have to figure it out. Anyway, that's that. My amazing Malabrigo Rios. I want to say this is 100% merino. It's incredible, you guys. Sorry, I just smelled my yarn. Yep, I did. So anyway, that's my first work in progress. The only other thing I have going on right now is my Julissa sweater by Vanessa Smith. Incredible designer again. I showed you this last time. I have not made a ton of progress, but I made enough progress that I'm going to just show you guys again. This is an awesome, here we go, sweater pattern. It's a raglan style sweater, and this is called the scoop neck version. So it's got this really nice sort of squared off scoop neck sort of idea. And this is knit out of Knit Picks comfy worsted yarn in the Celestial colorway. There we go. Knit Picks comfy worsted in the Celestial colorway. It's a 75% cotton and 25% acrylic. No judgment, guys. 75% cotton, 25 acrylic blend. But when I first introduced this sweater, I told you guys that I'm knitting it in cotton specifically because I have all this wool and I don't wear it because I'm worried it'll get damaged. I'm worried it'll get wet. I'm worried it'll, I'll get oil on it and then I won't be able to wash it ever again. I'm worried about all these things, and I sort of get in my own head about wearing wool out in public. So I'm hoping that with this sweater, I'll be able to, wear it more in public because it's made with cotton. And so hopefully it won't be so warm, or if I, get a little sweat in the armpits, hopefully it won't felt, like these are all things that I'm dealing with my other sweaters that just prevent me from wearing them. And I hate that. So anyway, the newest progress is in the front. This is sort of the scoop neck. Here, that's a little more representative of it. It just looks like a floppy mess right now. But if you go out to her pattern page, it's incredible, you guys. But this is the front of the scoop neck. I've done several inches, which is very nice. There's like a really fun lace pattern. Oh, good. How do I best describe that? Beautiful lace pattern on the sides, a nice cable in the middle. And it's been so much fun to work. And also, this pattern, although there's a cable and lace, it's easy to memorize. And so I can just sit in front of the TV, I can watch, other podcasts, and I can knit with this. And it's not quite a mindless knit because there's cabling, because there's lace, but it's not difficult. And so I'm happy to be able to kind of watch podcasts, watch TV, watch a movie and knit on this because it's easy to memorize and it's easy to read the knitting, so it's very intuitive, this design that she's made. Bravo, honestly, bravo. And I totally forgot to mention the first several times that I've started talking about this Julissa sweater. This was my Christmas Eve cast on. And I'd only heard about a Christmas Eve cast on because I was watching other podcasts, of course. And I was watching Kristen from the Yarngasm podcast, talking about how she does a Christmas Eve cast on. And it's something that is going to be special to you. And it's always going to be that Christmas Eve sort of feeling that you've got. And I thought it was a great idea. And so I am knitting this. This is my Christmas Eve cast on. And it's nice. It's a really nice pattern and I'm having fun knitting it. So I'm not in any hurry to finish it up. I do wish I had more progress to show you guys just because it's going to be like the same thing week after week. But I like having a big project going and then doing some sort of smaller things in between. So hopefully next week I'll have these mittens finished up. And maybe I'll even start on the cowl that I was looking at because I still had that sort of sister skein to the Malabrigo Rios water green colorway. I bought the sister skein, which is like a beautiful indigo blue purple, they're all my favorite colors. I say that literally about every single color, like, oh, it's one of my favorite colors right now. But really, indigo pretty much is my favorite color. And orange. Indigo and orange. Sometimes green. Pretty much if it's in the spectrum of visible light, then I love it. So anyway, whatever. I hope to make a cowl, and that way I'll have a matching set with a beautiful pair of mittens, a beautiful hat, and a cool cowl to all go together for my chilly cold London walking to the tube things. You guys, I'm so excited for London. I had a dream last night actually that my husband and I were in London and that we were going to take the overground. So there's two types of trains in London, I understand. There's the underground, which is like a subway, and then there's the overground, which is kind of like a train. And so I had a dream that we were living in London and that we had to take the overground somewhere. And so in the UK, they drive on the opposite side of the road as in the US. And so in my dream, the tube took the opposite side of the road as well. Anyway, retelling it does not sound like a fun dream. I'm so sorry. It actually was awesome. But the train came the opposite direction and I was like, oh no, we have to cross the street. We're going to miss the tube. I think I'm just getting excited about living in London, you guys. We just finalized our apartment for London. We're going to be living close to downtown. I don't really know anything about the area too much. I don't want to give too much away because what we're hoping to do is, get acclimated to the city, try it out, and then if we love the location, stay there for the whole 6 months. If we don't love the location, maybe we'll be able to kind of move around because Paul has to be at the British Archive for several months, and then at the British Library, and then in Oxford, and then at Cambridge, and he just has to kind of jet all around. We're hoping this is going to be centrally located enough for us, but there's never a guarantee. So anyway, I'm not going to talk too much about our apartment, but it's lovely. It's expensive because it's London. I'm not used to that, but luckily we do get a stipend for living expenses, and that's that. So anyway, I think those are the only 2 works in progress that I have right now. I am hoping to cast on something new, specifically that cowl. And then that's all the yarn that I have. Shit, I need to go yarn shopping, you guys. Like, I only have 1 project in the pipeline. That's insane. I don't think I've ever had just a single project in the pipeline. Of course, I've got other things I would love to knit, but in terms of wool that I've purchased for a project, that's all I have. You guys, okay, so dream knitting here. Total, again, with the tangents. Total tangent. Here's what I'm hoping for, and I think this is number 1 in my queue right now, is the French can. It's a lovely, I want to say a DK weight shawl. It looks like it's just garter rows, semicircle or like a crescent shaped shawl, and then the edge, this border has a beautiful plate cable on it with a little bit of lace on the edges. Holy cow, it just looks classic and timeless and beautiful, and it looks warm, and it's DK weight, so it should be fast. I want to knit that so bad. So better yet, I'm gonna go yarn shopping sometime soon. I don't have any plans to go yarn shopping, but I want to. I'll have to figure. My birthday's coming up. Maybe I can ask like my sister to take me yarn shopping, buy me 2 skeins of DK weight yarn. It's a great gift, right? I just ask her to buy me like the best mohair silk, like cashmere nylon blend that I can find. No, I'm not going to get the most expensive one in there, but if I do this, I want it to be with yarn that really sings to me and that I will treasure forever. Because as much as I love knitting with affordable yarns, sometimes you can tell the difference, and there's definitely a difference between Malabrigo and, garden, Zen Yarn Garden compared to knit picks. Again, I have nothing but knit picks in my stash right now, but sometimes you just need a yarn for a project that's really special to you. I think it's worthwhile to purchase a yarn that you're going to want to wear on a much more regular basis. And that's my lesson today, Megan's lessons about value. Here you go. All right, let's go into my one and only finished object. And it's 99% finished. But I showed you these guys last week, and they are both done. I made slippers. These are my amazing slippers. They are called, here we go, the Woman's Felted Mock Slipper, so like a moccasin style slipper, by Julie Finocchiaro. That's my best Italian accent, so I apologize for it. Anyway, these are my incredible slippers. This is knit out of Knit Picks Wool of the Andes. This is the Aurora Heather colorway, and this orange is the Persimmon Heather colorway. And it was a lot of fun to knit. Last week I showed you my big old floppy clown shoe. They actually did not shrink up as much as I expected them to. I'm going to talk about these in more detail, but I, added a little, basically when you kind of cast off what I've done in the green, it looks a little floppy, and the picture that's in the pattern has the slippers kind of, standing up on their own, and it looks very sturdy sort of thing. And mine were kind of flopping over. They were rolling the edges over, like sort of this way, like rolling the wrong way where you don't want it to be. So what I did here is I added just a crochet chain to try and, on the inside of the slipper, to try and tighten that up so that it wouldn't roll outward, so that it would, if anything, roll inward, or at the very least, I just wanted it to stand upright. So I did that, and that's why I've got kind of a nice orange border on my green slipper, and it worked, and so I thought it was great. So now here's how I felt at these slippers. First, let me start off by saying I can never follow a recipe. I can never follow patterns. I always improvise. That's a good way to say it. I always improvise. And so there were very clear, very, concise directions, perfect directions for how to felt these slippers in the pattern. Long story short, you kind of put them inside of, like a pillowcase or something. I put it in a pillowcase. And then you put it on the hottest setting, the highest setting, so like you want it to be as agitated in the washer as it can get. And so I did that. And I put, some extra clothes in so that it would ruffle around and kind of, get this all nice and felted. And after one wash cycle, they're still huge and you can still see the individual stitches. It just wasn't done. And she said it could take multiple cycles to do it. And I'm like, I don't have the patience for this. So I do a second cycle. They're still huge, like ginormous clown shoes. So instead of doing a third cycle, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna put these in the dryer. And specifically in the instructions, I did this to myself, but specifically in the instructions, she said, don't let the cycle go into the sort of rinse mode. You want it to be in that washing, agitated mode. You don't want it in the rinse cycle because usually it'll rinse with warm or cool water. And she said that will make creases that you cannot undo, like that giant crease that I can't undo. And so anyway, clearly I didn't follow the directions and I just popped them in the dryer. And that finally shrunk them up to the size that I needed. And so they actually are pretty great. And I think that with a little bit of wear, these creases on the outside are going to be a little bit better. Or maybe if I wash them once more, I'm hoping it'll sort of open back up again. But they're felted to the right size now. And I did have to kind of reform them a little bit. She says you might have to like put your fist in there and sort of form it out into a slipper shape. I've worn these 2 or 3 times and they get better each time I wear them. But that said, there's still these big creases. They don't bother me. These are my slippers, so I don't mind a little crease. But I want to wear them a few more times before I add the little toes and heels that I purchased. And I think I mentioned before, I purchased these on Knitpick's website because I was purchasing this wool of the Andes anyway, and they had these sort of suede 2-piece slipper bottoms is what they call them. And I believe these are the large size. They're pretty nice, actually. I haven't taken them out of the bag yet, but they look good. It's a neutral gray color, so it won't clash too bad with the bottom of my slipper. But I want to wear them a few more times because, for example, like here on the inside of the heel on this one, you can see that it still has a couple creases. I just want to wear it a few more times, see if I can wear it in a little bit before I pop the suede heels on. And if I need to adjust the size, I can always wash them, dry them, kind of do all this. But with the suede, I don't plan to ever wash them again. I mean, they're slippers. And I think you can totally ruin suede by putting it in the washer. So maybe I'll look it up, but I'm definitely going to wear these a few more times before I sew those on. I'm still counting them as finished objects because they're finished. All I have to do is sew it on, and I have no problems. Okay. I have no problems weaving in ends. And before I get into sort of about other podcasters, which is where my brain is going, I mentioned that I can never follow a recipe, and I just want to share with you guys a little anecdote about that, because every time I go over to someone's house, I'm like, oh, I want to bake something, like let me bring cookies, let me bring brownies, let me bring a dessert, like let me just bake for them. And every time I ever try to bake, specifically cookies, they end up flat, crispy, totally bad, and I'm always really upset with myself because I never follow the freaking recipe. So I don't care if the recipe is 4 ingredients. I don't care if it's like a pound cake where you're doing, pound of butter, pound of sugar, pound of flour, then pound of whatever. I don't care. I will somehow modify it because I think I can make it better, right? And so I've done it way too many times where I try to make specifically chocolate chip cookies, but also I've tried to make molasses cookies. I've tried making peanut butter cookies. I've made all the cookies and I've made them all flat. And I think it's just because I don't add enough flour. But if a recipe calls for 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, I'm like, you're never going to taste that. Like, let me just dump like 2 tablespoons in, or like a tablespoon and a half. But I should realize by now that it messes with the chemistry of it all. And specifically with extracts, it's all like pure alcohol that gives it that effervescent, sort of that extract part of it. Like the extract is the oils mixed with the alcohols so that it's fragrant. And so that's how you get that like fragrant vanilla smell, is by the alcohol actually, coming off in this, in your cookies. So anyway, it messes with the recipe every freaking time. And every time I try to bake cookies, I friggin' can't. And they end up super flat. Doesn't matter how much flour I add. Doesn't matter if I use butter or shortening or oil. It doesn't matter. I just don't bake. So anyway, I've learned not to bake. But the same goes for my knitting, because I cannot follow a pattern to a T. Like, I always modify something. And in this one, of course I did the 2 different colors. I, gave it sort of a more colorful, like a lining sort of thing, or whatever this little line is. But also I can't felt it properly. And so what am I left with? I'm left with creased slippers and flat cookies. So whatever. I'm happy with it. And again, the reason I made these is because I watched the Yarn Hoarder podcast, and several episodes ago now, she made a bunch of these felted slippers for people for Christmas, and I just loved them. So I'm hoping that I love them enough to wear them all over, not all over London, but like wear them in my house in London, and have some nice home, like handmade slippers. I've never really had slippers before, so this is a first for me. Anyway, I do want to talk a little bit about other podcasts right now, because actually I'm going to name drop a little bit. I've had a couple of other podcasters follow my podcast, which makes me feel so friggin' special, you guys, like seriously. So I think the first podcast to follow me was the Mean Girls Knit podcast, and specifically Rebecca. Hi, Rebecca. She added me as a friend on Ravelry, and I saw that Mean Girls podcast has added you to their, has subscribed to my channel, and it was the coolest thing. And I think it's funny that they, always talk about things that they don't like, or things that they, do like with knitting. And it seems like that I'm always opposite with them. And so this one is pretty common among all the podcasts. I don't mind weaving in my ends. I will weave in my ends as I go. I hate having ends to weave in at the end of a project sort of thing. And to me, a project is never complete before I block it, before I wash it, before I do anything. I'm weaving in those ends. And that's just because like it bothers me to have them around. And so if I can take 30 seconds to just weave it in, snip it off, and then I'm done, I'd much rather do that than have, at the end of a beautiful tricolor shawl with stripes, I wouldn't want to have 60 ends to weave in at the end of my project. And so I weave in my ends as I go. And I've seen a lot of people with fully finished objects, they're just, the blanket's done, it's on the couch, it's, the sweater's done, it's on the person, but there are ends hanging off. No judgment here, but like, I don't mind weaving in my ends. So another fun fact about me, I'm like a weird knitter. I don't care for knitting shawls. I don't mind weaving in ends, whatever. And the Mean Girls Knit podcast follows me. So if you haven't checked them out, they're hilarious too, actually, along with a bunch of other knitting podcasts that I watch, but specifically the Mean Girls Knit. I think they're out of Washington State, I believe. They're out on the West Coast, but they are like kind of more like snarky, like real people. I feel like when I watch podcasts, I like the podcasts that are real, where I feel like I can kind of get into their head and their personality comes out a little more. I don't want my podcast to just be, this is the yarn I'm using, this is the store I went to, I think it can get a little mechanical sometimes, but the Mean Girls Knit are definitely real knitters. So thanks for following me, and I definitely follow you guys too. And one other podcaster that I want to give a very special shout out to is my new gal pal. Her name is Jaden from the Purl Up and Dye podcast, which if that doesn't hook you in right there, her knitting will, because she's actually a fantastic knitter. And she reached out to me I want to say like a week and a half ago. She reached out to me on Instagram, and we've been chatting back and forth. And, she and I like to knit similar things. We knit for similar reasons. And she has a really fun podcast herself. So she's a podcaster, she's a yarn dyer, she is a mother, and so she knits a lot for her family members, specifically her, daughters. And I saw one giant sweater that she made for her husband. I mean, I've never knit anyone else's sweater, so right there, I'm super impressed. But anyway, Jaden, who is known as Creations on a Whim on Ravelry, she is a great podcaster, and her and I have decided to kind of team up for a future knit along. And the reason that we get along so well is because we are both very much so knitters on a budget. And so we knit a lot of knit picks. We can have real conversations about some, budget yarns and everything. And I just think that that's great, because as much as I would love to knit Madeline Tosh every day, for the amount that I knit, I cannot use exclusively wonderful yarns. Sometimes you're going to need to knit with knit picks. You're going to need to knit with something from the craft store. You're going to need to knit with acrylic. And as long as you're knitting and as long as you are happy with the end result, that's really the most important thing, right? So Jaden and I have decided in a little bit, so I believe that this is going to start March 1st, we are going to do the #CheapCal. We're going to be doing a knit along where you can knit anything you want as long as the yarn you're using is less than $10 per ball or skein. The rules are going to be that you have to use at least maybe 30 or 40 grams of yarn, so you can't submit a dishcloth or a little, scrubby using leftover cotton yarn. It has to be a true project, but something like an amigurumi would definitely qualify. If you wanted to make a hat, totally it would qualify. You just have to make something of a more substantial project. And what I am going to do is put a list of charities together. This is not necessarily an exclusive charity knit along. This is just something that I know personally I would be, I'm interested to give some things away to charity before I leave the country. And so this is something that I might do. However, what I'm doing is kind of compiling a list of charities that are in the US, which is my sort of home base, in Canada, which is her home base, and some charities that are in the UK. I apologize that I can't get to everywhere, but if you are interested in knitting for charity, there's always amazing places to donate in your country, whether it be a local hospital, a local women's shelter, a homeless shelter, whether it be a children's hospital, some things like this. You can find them everywhere. So even though I'm going to be putting together a list of specific charity organizations that are looking for specifically hand knit garments, there are lots of other options if you're interested to knit for charity. That's not a requirement for this knit along though. The only requirement is that the yarn has to be less than $10 a skein. Also, knitting with gift yarn doesn't count either. So if somebody gifted you Madeline Tosh or Malabrigo or any of these other really amazing but more expensive yarns, those will not be eligible for the knit along. And the prizes that we're going to do are going to be the grand prize is going to be a Knit Picks $25 gift card. We're also going to have a couple of second and or third place winners as well. And I know something that I'm going to give away, and I'll show this when we finally announce it, because it's not official. We don't have all the details figured out yet, so don't worry, we're going to give you more information when the time comes. But I know personally I have a special something that I picked up in Egypt for a viewer, and so if you win, you will get something that is from Egypt, and so that is hopefully a little incentive. Come join us. if you don't feel like it, or if you know, prefer to work with really amazing yarn, I'm so jealous, and totally don't worry about it. But this is going to be our hashtag CheapCal. So hopefully watch out for that. Join us if you're interested. And maybe if you also are interested, you can do some good for charity. So keep it up. I think on that note, I'm all finished for today. I don't have too much else going on over here. I am planning to leave for the UK on February 15th. So I'm not sure how consistent my podcasts are going to be for the coming weeks, just with finalizing details, packing, paying off my rent in London, and all these sorts of things. So I'm going to try and do like a weekly podcast, but sort of depending on what's going on in my life, it might be a little more inconsistent than that. So thanks for sticking with me. Thank you for watching. Again, you can find me and add me on Ravelry as Meg311Yo, also on Instagram. And please join the Knitters Party podcast group on Ravelry. Right now we just have a couple little threads, but you can definitely get that coupon code for a free amigurumi pattern from my store if you're interested. And again, thank you to everyone like who's made a project page for these. It means a lot to me, and it's so cool to see sort of what colors you've chosen and what iterations you guys have made for a pattern that I designed just on a whim. So that was really cool, and I hope that you guys are liking that. So reach out to me on Ravelry Instagram and in my Ravelry group. And otherwise, I look forward to seeing you next time, guys. So take care, ma salama, and we will talk to you again next time. Bye-bye.